Hi, everyone, and welcome to the third class in the Clairs series. And today we will be focused in on clairaudience. Now, think in your mind, have you ever heard your name called upon just waking up or just falling asleep? Do you ever get a song stuck in your head? Are they songs that are recurring, meaning they regularly happen, or is it just random or it feels random? Because it's probably not. But these are some really easy and simple signs that's clairaudience kicking up for you. I want to welcome anybody that's listening to the recording of this on YouTube. I really appreciate it, and I hope that you'll spend some time liking the channel. You can also click that button for notifications, and I appreciate the follow there on YouTube. I make not 1 cent from my videos. I don't monetize my videos. I can't help it if there is commercials in there, so I apologize if there are. But I want to appreciate all of those that are listening back on this recording as well. But we have people live here on this Zoom, and hopefully we'll even get good questions from those live. But if you've got questions, you can always put them in the comment section of my YouTube channel as well. All right, clairaudience today is the topic. Clair, again, as we know from this series, means clear. It's a French term meaning clear, and audience obviously is our hearing, or what we hear. We can hear through our mind's eye, the imagination side of our brain, just like we might get images or pictures, and it comes in differently. It'll often feel like the sound of your own voice in your head, but sometimes it can come through and sound from a different voice, or a different, what people will call, had a different feeling to it, or a vibration. Now, when we're connecting in with our clairaudience in any fashion, whether we're sensing things in our physical body like clairsentience, which was our first class, and or if you're seeing pictures or images, which is clairvoyance, or like the movies running through your head, or the clairaudience that our loved ones, our guides, the angels around us, or even our beloved fur babies that will be in the spirit world, come in with love. It doesn't mean that they wouldn't sometimes perhaps give a warning, but they never bring in the voice of negativity, like you're too fat, or you're so dumb, or you should just kill yourself. This is never the voice of our loved ones, if you will. It's often our own egoic negative thinking that brings these things in. I don't feel anybody here needs to worry about the idea of this being evil presence around us. That is an unusual thing to happen, but who is probably the worst critic in your own world, in your own head, is you. So when these messages come through that are uplifting or encouraging or the go for it kinds of things, this can often be your spirit team linking in for you, and it's a form of clairaudience, and we often dismiss it as our own thinking or our own thoughts. It's easy to do that because we want proof or we want evidence, and I understand that. But what we want to do when we're working towards building that muscle of clairaudience is to suspend doubt and go forth from that loving voice to pursue whatever avenue we want to for our best, maybe healing or the inspiration that it's giving. Ever be inspired by a song? Guess what? That can be the spirit world reminding you to be powerful or loving or beautiful, or all those things that we can get inspired through a song, motivated, right? So how does clairvoyance manifest? It's an internal hearing, which is most common, but sometimes it can happen outside of our head. And I will often be somewhere walking, whether it's down the aisle of a grocery store or down the street, and I feel or hear in my head, it feels sometimes like it's outside of me, someone call my name, and I'll often turn around to look, knowing that there's no one there calling my name. And I've done that before many times, as a matter of fact, when I'm walking somewhere with my husband and he'll say, what's going on? Like he knows now to ask that question, but it often just feels like our own voice in our head, but sometimes it's not. The voice can appear in our mind distinct from your own thoughts, because sometimes our thoughts are mostly negative, but it comes in with some encouragement. Now, if you're in the chat room here and you've had that experience of in any fashion that we just talked about, like a voice calling your name, waking up, or falling asleep, or hearing it as you're walking somewhere, or the voice in your head encouraging you, like you've got this, keep going, just type a yes there in our chat room here on the Zoom, and feel free to do that if you're listening back on YouTube. That internal hearing often can feel like our own voice, but sometimes it feels like someone else's. It's often comforting, right? Or it can even be instructive. Like, why do I just feel like I need to stop at the Starbucks here instead of the one closer to work? Ever, like, we can get directions that way because we just feel, but we're sometimes hearing it. And remember how we've been talking about how our different clairs can join together? I can just feel like I need to stop there. Ever have that feeling you need to do something? Change direction, stop somewhere first, go straight home instead? Yeah. You know, I've heard before being stopped at a stoplight that turns green, and I am a stomp on the gas girl. But I have heard before, don't go, right? Just to see a truck speeding through the intersection, coming in through it late, right? And it's because I'm fast, and so that is the voice of spirit, right? The voice of spirit. We can have that external hearing like we just talked about, like your name being called. How about that music again? So I want you to evoke a sense of the last time you remember getting like that song in your head, right? And it's just sometimes before falling asleep or waking up again, there's some kind of message in it. I'm going to encourage you right now to pay attention to those. It can sound like it's just next to you or next to your ear or in the environment. It was like that for me on Friday, where I felt like I was tuned to a radio station that was connected to the ethers. Like especially if I walked in my laundry room, it felt like I could feel people were talking in there, and I didn't know what they were saying. And it was a day full of readings, but it was a weird sensation. I was like, it's like the spirit world is more opened up, and I could hear it more distinctly outside of my mind in the laundry room. Go figure, maybe somebody was trying to help me in the laundry room there. But we can have external sounds as well, right? So how about symbolic hearing? Have you just ever felt like you're talking to someone and like the lyrics of a song come to your mind and you want to share it with them? Or the idea of a phrase or a word, or sometimes for some people it's a Bible passage that just comes to them in a moment that you can recite to them and want to say to someone. How about some profound words of wisdom, or maybe you just saw or listened to, say a podcast, or saw a podcast that you knew that the podcast that you saw was definitely going to help someone. Like it came to you, but then in that moment when you were talking with a friend or a coworker or a family member, it came to you. I feel like I need to tell you I was just listening to this. Sometimes even clairaudience can come through that spirit. In my opinion, this is connected to clairaudience, that spirit's lining up the synchronicities to have knowledge in you in some way so that you can be a cooperative component to that other person. in whatever way. Sometimes the words of a book are what I can start to feel like I'm hearing the characters in my head kind of somewhat come to life. Now, that's not necessarily spirit, but it's a way to build the muscle to have clairaudience become more of a built muscle or a strength in your arsenal of spiritual gifts. And so how about, are you someone, type yes if you are in the chat, that talks to themselves? You often you catch yourself talking to yourself, sometimes even out loud. Often these are the people that are very clairaudient, but aren't necessarily always aware of it, because we can get used to it having that gift. Looks like several people here are have that gift. It doesn't mean that you aren't clairaudient if you're not somebody that walks around talking to themselves. But I do that quite a bit. I've been caught several times when people will ask me, who is it are you talking to? Just me. I'm just talking to me, right? That kind of thing. What clairaudience feels like, it can feel like sudden, clear inner knowing accompanied by a mental voice of some kind that may feel like your own. That's what it can feel like. Or the song that comes in your head, right? Guidance that feels calm, wise, and often unexpected, right? Feeling optimistic, motivated, in clear mind. Sometimes, for me, it comes, I want to say a few hours after, sometimes a few moments after I'm prayerful about something, right? How about, anybody use oracle cards, angel cards, maybe even tarot cards, and you'll look at an image or a picture and hear something in your head? Type yes if you've ever had that experience with an oracle card. Or how about, have you heard the voice in your head say, like, maybe, I can't say this in a pretty way, but maybe like, don't trust that person? Like it's both a feeling oftentimes, right? And we're just hearing, don't trust them. You're hearing in your mind to not trust them. And sometimes our gut, type yes if this happens to you too, if your gut starts to trigger something and then you hear something in your mind. Or maybe you see a vision, like, or an image or a picture or a symbol. So it can feel like that gut feeling at first, that clairsentience, and then it'll kick in with another clair. And so I started with clairsentience in our first class for a reason, because we keep revisiting that one, don't we? We connect feelings and even bodily sensations with images as well. Ever like see something gory on TV and then get the chills? Or how about if somebody says something to you and then you get the chills? Like, sometimes I'll be passing messages on to people of love and support from their spirit team, and I'll get the chills. That's your different clairs working collaboratively together, and it's beautiful when that happens. Okay, let's keep going here with some clairaudience. How about the sense of a message is received, not self-generated? Pay attention to that. I'll sometimes even argue, yeah, I hear you, I'm not doing that anyway, like to my spirit team. Like, like just not feeling like I want to collaborate with spirit right then and there or do it, That's okay too, but some of you may be able to resonate with that kind of sense. Here's some common clairaudient experiences, and we've talked about some already, but I'll remind you, or I'll say them again, or these might be new. Waking up. Think about a message that you have had, because sometimes something will linger with us when we've had an experience. Waking up, yeah, a word repeating in your head. Hearing someone's voice right before they call or text you. And it could show up in another way. That's okay if it comes to mind first, that you just know. You just know Janet's going to be texting you. You just, oh, and she does. And or have you ever said to somebody, I was just thinking about you? Yeah. And then they called or they tell you that because there is that that connection being made that's part of clairaudience. And we just know it when it happens, right? We just know it when it happens. And people will chalk that up to coincidence, but I don't believe that it is. Let's see, receiving inner guidance during journaling, prayer, or meditation. Ever had a meditative experience? And it could be any of the clairs, right? Think that way. How about soft, audible voices, like I mentioned in my laundry room, when no one is physically present? And sometimes we just feel like you're hearing them. Being woken at night by a sound only you can hear. Something wakes you up. Yeah, anybody have that? Where a sound that something woke you up and it's like, there's nothing going on. There's nothing here. Yeah. I got people saying all the time, especially when we were little, right? These abilities are natural and innate to us. And then we just get kind of bogged down, I guess, or our mind gets cluttered with so many other things. And so, but when you make an effort to work on your clairs, some of that clutter from our lives starts to dissipate. We start to give less energy to the things that bring us anxiety, fear, and we're able to link in these ways a little more. I would hear the loudest things my mom could never hear at night. Yeah, there you go. We have somebody mentioning that. And so some people listening to this recording later may really vibe with that experience. And when we're young, it can be a little frightening if nobody can hear it, but it's really never anything scary. Okay. Who has clairaudience? See if this if we go back to you feeling like you can relate to this, like you can relate to these notions. But many people have some degree of clairaudience, often without realizing it. It can be natural or spontaneous, especially in sensitive or in intuitive individuals. So if you're already a sensitive and you want to support that natural, spontaneous clairaudience, you key into the sound between sounds. And so we'll even talk a little bit more about that. It is developed through practice, like meditation, energy work, and listening exercises. Listening to the sound between sounds, you're not listening for something, you're just creating space. And so you might be hearing like a rhythmic sound of a fan, and then all of a sudden you can kind of perceive things. The sound between the breaths that you make. A breathing practice is so easy to do it, and you can just do it even when you're driving. But if it makes you feel like you want to close your eyes, then don't do it then. But you can just breathe and just kind of sense in the moment that space between the breaths. It's a great practice, and then have zero expectation for anything to happen. You let it go. You just work at the idea of creating that space between the breaths to be whatever it could or eventually become. Because the mind needs to shift into different states. And we're going to talk about that next class, about the different beta brain waves, alpha brain waves, theta brain waves. And we'll talk about that in breath work and meditation. Prayerfulness even can help to create you going into those brain waves that make it easier for those messages to flow through in whatever way they come to you. And we love them all, don't we? We love the clairvoyance, the clairsentience, the clairaudience. We love them all. Auditory sensitivity, physical and subtle, that you might hear your name being called. We talked about that, but I want to bring things into how sometimes we feel them very physically, even though it's subtle, right? And so I want you to, when you have those moments, to honor them. instead of dismissing it, that's coincidence, I didn't really hear that, nobody else heard it, we're not gonna, what's that term for that? Oh, gaslight ourselves. We're just gonna take it in. You're very sensitive to background noise. How many people here, especially when they were younger, that loud noises were very upsetting, or loud noises could create, like, you'd get a headache later, or like a movie, going to the movies, you might have to take a nap after going to the movies, or watching a loud movie. Concerts. After going to concerts for days, I would be exhausted. So then that is a way of your sensitivity to be, it can be a little hijacked, for lack of a better term for it, right? It can be overdrive, and you're oversensitive to these things. We can learn through some energy work, grounding practices, the idea of protection and bubbling, not from anything negative or dark, just for the idea of being sensitive, right? Shielding exercises can be very supportive in not feeling hijacked through loud noise or disturbing noise kinds of things. And so, how about like music, buzzing or ringing sounds in your ears, and it's not a medical tinnitus? Like, I have been checked for tinnitus multiple times in my life. Like, it used to make my mom nuts that I would complain about, and sometimes even start crying. When I was 13, I had a spout of that. My mom started taking me to specialists, and they're like, she actually has better than normal hearing. Because why? I was very sensitive. The things, though, that we didn't know at that time, you can help the children that are around you, or maybe in your life, understand that they're not crazy. I have someone here in our chat room saying, very true, never thought about that, being completely exhausted days after a concert. Because if you're a sensitive with clairaudient, meaning that there's already somewhat of a muscle there being built just naturally, because it is natural, then all of our intuitive gifts, all of our clairs are natural, but some of them have a stronger muscle, or just maybe a muscle that's a little bit more tuned in. It's not a good term to have muscle for that. That's not a good analogy. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. And that means that you want to be mindful of being in those loud situations, and then practicing some of that breath work, our meditation, and then we'll learn some more things next week with the idea of the brain waves to support being in that zone, and enjoying it. Like, I want to enjoy a concert, and we'll talk a little bit next time too as well, with ways that we can energetically be responsible for not being hijacked. And it's easy, it's not hard, and it's our duty to be mindful of our own energy. All right, let's see. That sensitivity, you can sometimes hear whispers, knocks, or bells without a known source, which can feel very physical, like it'd turn your head, that kind of physical. Now, it doesn't mean you're not clairaudient if you don't get it that way. It's okay. Not everybody's going to get it the same way. Doesn't mean you don't have that ability. How about the internal messages or mental hearing? You receive answers in your head that seem clearer, wiser than your own thoughts. And you know what, quite honestly, I get more of those for other people than myself. For whatever reason, I don't get the wise things for myself as often as I'd like. Or maybe I'm not listening. So maybe that's you too. You sometimes hear advice or warnings just before something happens. I've had that. Anybody have had like a warning? Type a yes there in our chat room, that you feel like, don't go there, don't listen to them, don't trust that person, stop, go left instead of right. There's a whole list of things that can be there for. And there's books filled with people saying that they felt angels were there also guiding them to be out of harm's way, like in shooting situations or, dangerous situations kind of thing. Okay, you hear guidance while meditating, praying, or journaling, as if someone is speaking to you inside, like inside of you, inside of your mind, pushing on that, what I call the imagination side of the brain. That is always awesome when it happens. And don't we wish that we could hear that for every question, problem, or situation that we have? Say amen if you think the same thing. But we can't, because we have clairaudience, get out of our lessons or our ability to learn discernment and navigate through the challenges of life. So we can have symbolic hearing, believe it or not, of you through like the messages through song lyrics, audio clips of something, a conversation that you feel is meant for you. I've just overheard people speaking and know that that conversation was meant for me. You frequently hear the same phrase, word, or a sound multiple times across different sources, or you hear the same name coming to you. Like when I received my guide as Sarah, like Sarah is one of my spirit guides, and that name kept coming to me in strange ways. And so that's another way to have symbolic kind of connection and hearing it. Sometimes the spirit world uses other people in their actual voice, and would we say that's clairaudient? I think we can give some space for it to be in that range, even if someone else is saying it, because I'm keying into hearing it. I feel spiritually led to hearing that. That makes sense. You're drawn to healing or vibrational tools like chanting, tuning forks, or sound baths, crystal bowls. You guys know that I've studied with a Tibetan master and do healing and crystal bowl sound baths, because I really resonate with that soothingness, the frequency and the vibration of them. So that is something from symbolic hearing. Spiritual and paranormal signs. Let's talk about that for a minute. And then I want to take some questions about spiritual or paranormal signs. Have you had experiences of hearing a departed loved one's voice in your mind or your ear? Type yes in the chat if you feel like you've heard somebody departed. I do all the time. I do all the time. It might feel somewhat paranormal, right? And sometimes we don't have enough of those experiences because they can be a lot of fun. We want it more like that, right? Like we hear somebody outside of us speaking. You've been woken up by a voice, sound, or name. We talked about that, but some people can think of that as more spiritual or paranormal, because when it really kind of paranormal, what I'm meaning here with that is it's a little more jarring or real, like it kind of shakes us a little bit more. Doesn't mean that you have to have it that way, just like for people to know it's not anything negative happening to you. You feel that someone is trying to talk to you when you're alone, especially in quiet settings. You know, one of the places to get some of that, I'm just going to say, is in the shower, the water, or in the bath. Water somehow can be a conductor for sound, reaching us through that clairaudient muscle. Anybody have questions or had a situation that they'd like me to bring up? You can type it in if you want to, or you can unmute if you feel like it's too much to type or want to ask a question now, because it can be very helpful for people listening back to the recording if there's questions. I'm not sensing them, but you can keep putting them in there and I'll go back to that if anybody has questions about anything that's happened to them paranormal, because sometimes people can get scared, and I don't want you to ever feel that there's anything that is more powerful than you. Nothing's more powerful than you. Nothing's scarier than our own mind, even, probably. Maybe that's just me. But anyway, we'll keep going here. How about communication gifts? You're skilled at maybe public speaking, singing, writing, or teaching. I don't have all of those, and I'm still clairaudient. And so people that have communication gifts can often have a more in-tuned muscle from the get-go, but it doesn't mean other people can't. If you're like, I don't have any of that, I can't public speak, can't sing, can't write, can't teach, it doesn't mean that you can't build this muscle still. Just want to say that. These are all what we call throat chakra gifts, right? That's what it's termed as. Let's see. You often feel the urge to speak or write messages spontaneously. I know people that can't, in my family, that can't stop speaking. I'm not so sure it's necessarily clairaudient, but you know what I mean. It feels more inspired. Or have you ever, I have literally been places where I feel I have to go tell someone something nice. I really love your shoes, or you have the most beautiful hair. And it just feels awkward the moment it comes out of my mouth, but I sometimes can't stop it. But it's always things that I feel are kind or loving messages, but sometimes people will be like, okay, weirdo, thanks, go away, lady. But no, but those things that you might feel also spontaneously that you need to say, they often come with a sense of support, inspiration, kindness. Sometimes somebody just needs to hear a kind word in their day. We don't know why we're that cooperative component to giving it to them. I have somebody here that shared about the water that appeared near to me when there was no explainable source or spill of water. And what is this? Oh, if you have something that shows up in the like a paranormal water for something being there. What I always take those things is water relates to emotion, something being spilled or being present there. Spirit can sometimes work with water, right? Water's cleansing and purifying. The area might have been purified and there might just be some leftover that just manifested itself spiritually and paranormally as water. We go through our process, right? We're checking for leaks with somebody else here, or whatever, and we rule them out and we just say thank you to Spirit. Water's cleansing. That's a sign or a symbol of being cleansed or clean or cleared. So love that about water, right? Somebody here says, nothing scary, but I do see a man walking around the house I moved to, just doing his thing. Pretty positive. Try in your mind to ask him if he's ready to leave or move on and see how that goes. Maybe let him know that you can see, sense, feel, hear him, all of the above, and see if there is a way that you can support his journey to move on, and or just let him know, like, all good. You're good over there doing your thing by yourself, and I'm good over here doing my thing by myself, and we'll just let it alone. But see if that you can be supported, because we don't want for anybody in spirit to not continue to evolve and grow. And biggest growth happens when souls cross into the light and begin to continue their journey of expansion and growth from the other side. I don't want to say that souls are stuck here on the earth plane, because it's some level of choice, but it's limiting. So, being a supportive individual to help them move on. She says now, that feels like me at work a lot with saying the kind of things randomly to people. Right, like you're saying that you just feel inspired to make a comment to someone. Yeah. I often feel I should say something to someone, but usually don't, because I think they will think I'm strange. I'm at the age where I just recognize I am strange, and I mean no harm, and I am going to give zero cares about that anymore or as much. And sometimes I can't stop myself. And I just feel like, well, I'm probably never going to see them again anyway. So now they had a day where they know they've got good shoes on, or the hair looks great, or whatever. But later realize I should have said it. So now you're going to take your chance, right? You're going to take your chance. Awesome. All right, we're going to move into an activity. It's simple, it's easy. So we're going to start by, we're going to set the intention to open our third eye to both allow to move into the idea of hearing or sensing we're hearing when we do the next activity. And so as last time with the third eye, you can put two fingers at your third eye and a hand at your heart, whichever hand you like. And we just kind of close our eyes and we set the intention to open that third eye. We just allow you to open, and we move energy into the heart, perhaps sensing your heart beating. See if you can sense any sensations, perhaps knowings, perhaps a sense of even hearing, that third eye expanding and sharing energy with the heart. And now take that hand on the heart and move it to the throat area. It's okay if you don't touch the throat, but you certainly can. And the idea of sensing from the third eye, like a cord of light moving into the throat from the third eye. Like drawing a line from the third eye into the throat, down to the throat, and expanding the throat. Sometimes you might need to cough or clear your throat with the intention. The throat chakra can often be a gateway to opening clairaudience. And then we just think, so it is. If you'd like, you can bring your hands back to your heart. Energetically feeling ready. If you'd like to keep your eyes closed, I want you to practice listening to the sound of, first, a train. Bring it in through the imagination side of your brain. Now the sound of wind chimes. Allow for any senses that support the hearing of these sounds to also accompany you. Thunder, a trumpet being played, the rustling of keys to open a door. Key into the sound of someone saying, I love you. A car crash. The laughter of a child. The laughter of a child being tickled. A favorite song. Traffic on a freeway. Any tune by Beethoven. A buzzsaw. A barking dog. A harmonica. A standing ovation. Now bring any sound of your choice to your mind. All right. Now type in the chat whether this was easy or hard. Easy or hard. And then pick a favorite sound, perhaps. I love that. I loved it too. Thank you for writing. I loved it. Some of the favorites were the favorite song, Beethoven, harmonica. Oh, that's awesome. What sound to you was most off-putting? I don't want to use the word disturbing, you know. We got traffic, car crash, and chainsaw, yeah. Now, was there any sound that was difficult or you decided not to? bring the sound to mind. I think we're all good with that. Did you notice the chainsaw? Yeah, car crash. Did you notice the difference between the laughing child, or was there a difference between the laughing child and then the laughing of the child being tickled? Was there a difference? Yeah, there was a difference. There often is, interestingly enough. That's how tuned in people can be at times. What was I going to ask? Oh, if you had a song that came to mind, please type it in. A favorite song? Yeah, subtle higher vibration. I love that you could key in to that, the difference in what it was. Yeah, if you give yourself some thought. And some people know difference, which is okay too. Oh, we've got some ballet music as a favorite song. I love that. Oh, imagine. Your Woman, White Town. I don't know what that is, but maybe I have to look it up. Right into Tool. I don't know that either. Journey, Don't Stop Believin' is what came to my head for whatever reason. But there's a message in there. What would the message in the song be? Oh, I love that. Billy Joel, because of his health issues now. Oh, I didn't know he had health issues, bless his heart. Okay. So sometimes we get the favorite songs and things that are a song that just came to your mind. There's always a message in that. So I hope you write that down and then you think on the words in the song, the message that you were receiving today. If you're watching this later on YouTube, or if you're those that are on Zoom here, view this again later and you get a different song, I want you to pay attention to that. But please share that. And what did you hear that just came to you, if you want to share it? Oh, he has brain issues. Bless his heart. So what words might have just came to you, or sound just came to you? Sound of healing. Okay. What does that sound like? That's interesting. Sometimes we just know it when we hear it, but we can't necessarily describe. Some sounds aren't always describable. Oh, bird singing. That's a good one. I heard a bicycle bell. You know that chime of bicycle bell? So that's interesting. I don't know why I got that. But it's a good think on. Not do your head in on why you received that sound in that moment. It just is some soft and gentle food for thought. I see in here sound traveling through water as healing. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Well, we know that water is definitely a powerful healing tool for you. So that's wonderful. This is a good practice to kind of have if you are wanting to work on that connection with hearing. The thing about hearing is you're best served, and I'll go back to saying this again, of listening to the sound between sounds that you're focused on. You might be focused on the sound of your breath, right? Or the beating of your heart. And you kind of subtly key into, or you just allow to see if something falls through the gap there of the sound you might be listening to, whether it's a fan, your beating of your heart, your breath. These are just things that make sense, but you might be somewhere. If you've ever listened to a child jumping rope and it hits the ground, and then it goes back and it hits the ground again and hits the ground again, there's a space between as the rope's coming across. That's that space between the sound in that instance as well. That's what I mean when I'm saying that. And so that's kind of a good example there. I hope that this was helpful. I'm going to take your questions here for if there are any for just a moment about this. Those of you that are listening back won't get the benefit, listening on the recording on YouTube, but those here in class don't check out once I stop the recording, because we can unpack some of this and talk about it a little bit more. All right. I'm going to go ahead and then stop the recording and just thank everybody again. If you are here on YouTube, please also go check out my website, angelichope.com, and don't forget to check out the other classes and meditations that I have here on YouTube.